The first thing he felt was cold. Not the gentle cool of morning air, but the sharp bite of metal against bare skin. His eyes opened slowly, fighting against bright white lights that seemed to burn into his skull. Everything was a blur of strange shapes and colors. He tried to move his arm, but something held it down. Panic shot through his chest like lightning. Where was he? What had happened to him? He pulled harder against whatever was keeping him still, and heard a soft beeping sound get faster and louder. "He is awake," said a voice that sounded like wind chimes mixed with broken glass. "Call healer Nara immediately." The man turned his head toward the voice and saw something that made his heart skip. A tall figure stood beside his bed, but it was not human. The being looked like it was made of living crystal, with pale blue light flowing through its transparent body like water. Its face was smooth and featureless except for two glowing spots where eyes should be. "Do not be afraid," the crystal being said, its voice somehow gentle despite the strange sound. "You are safe now. You have been sleeping for many days." Where am I?" The man's voice came out as a harsh whisper. His throat felt like sandpaper. "You are on Cathara Prime, in our medical center. I am Dr. Valen of the Valari people. We found you drifting in space inside a damaged escape pod." The man tried to remember how he had gotten into an escape pod, but his mind was empty. It was like looking into a dark room with no windows. He could not remember his name, his home, or how he had ended up floating in space. "What is my name?" he asked. Dr. Valen's glowing eyes dimmed slightly. "We were hoping you could tell us. There was no identification in your pod, and our scans show that you have suffered severe trauma to the memory centers of your brain." Before the man could ask more questions, another Valari entered the room. This one was smaller than Dr. Valen, with warmer golden light flowing through its crystal body instead of blue. "This is healer Nara," Dr. Valen said. "She has been caring for you during your recovery." Nara moved closer to the bed with graceful steps. "How do you feel, human? Are you in pain?" "My head hurts," he admitted. "And I feel empty, like something important is missing." Nara nodded and touched a panel beside his bed. The beeping sound slowed down. "That is normal after memory trauma. Your body is healing well, but your mind needs more time." "How long have I been here?" 12 days, Nara replied. "Your pod was badly damaged when our patrol ships found it. You were nearly dead from oxygen loss and radiation exposure." The man looked down at his hands and saw they were wrapped in strange silvery bandages that seemed to pulse with their own light. "What happened to me?" Dr. Valen and Nara exchanged a look that the man somehow understood meant they were sharing some kind of silent communication. "We believe you are a refugee from the war," Dr. Valen said finally. "Your species, humanity, has been fighting against the machine collective called the Ravagers for 3 years now." "War?" The word felt heavy and dangerous in his mouth. "The Ravagers are machines that consume entire worlds," Nara explained, her voice soft with sadness. "They have destroyed many civilizations across the galaxy. Earth, your homeworld, fell to them 6 months ago." The news hit him like a physical blow. Earth was gone? His entire species? But strangely, he felt no grief, only a hollow ache where emotions should have been. "Are there other humans alive?" he asked. "Very few," Dr. Valen said. "You may be one of the last survivors we have encountered." The man closed his eyes and tried to force his mind to remember something, anything about his past. But all he found were shadows and echoes. However, deep in his chest he felt something else. It was not a memory, but a feeling. A burning sense that he needed to be somewhere else, that he had something important to do. "I need to go," he said suddenly, trying to sit up. Nara gently pushed him back down. "You are not well enough to travel. Your body needs more time to heal." "No, you do not understand." The feeling was getting stronger, like a fire in his blood. "There is somewhere I need to be. Coordinates. I can see coordinates in my mind." Dr. Valen leaned forward with interest. "What coordinates?" The man concentrated hard and numbers flashed in his mind like burning letters. Sector 847, Quadrant Gamma 9. I have to get there. That is deep in Ravager territory, Dr. Valen said with alarm. Nothing survives there. It would be suicide to go to those coordinates. I do not care, the man said, and he meant it. The need to reach those coordinates was stronger than his fear of death. Something is waiting for me there. Something important. Nara touched his forehead with her crystal hand, and he felt a cool, calming sensation. Rest now, human. We will discuss this when you are stronger. But even as his eyes grew heavy, the man knew he would not rest easy. The coordinates burned in his mind like a beacon, calling to him across the dark void of space. He did not know who he was or where he had come from, but he knew with absolute certainty that he had made a promise to someone. A promise that he would keep no matter what the cost. As sleep took him, he heard Dr. Valen speaking quietly to Nara near the door. Run a deep scan on his neural implants tomorrow, Dr. Valen said. I want to know what the humans did to him before their world. Well, neural implants? Nara whispered back. His brain shows signs of artificial enhancement. Whoever this human is, he was modified for a specific purpose. The question is what purpose, and whether we can trust him. The man drifted off to sleep with their words echoing in his mind. Neural implants, artificial enhancement, modified for a purpose. What had been done to him, and why could he not remember anything except the burning need to reach those distant coordinates? In his dreams, he saw faces he could not recognize and heard voices calling his name. But every time he tried to focus on the voices, they faded away like smoke. Only one thing remained constant throughout his restless sleep: the image of coordinates, floating in the darkness, and the unshakable feeling that time was running out. 3 days passed before the human was strong enough to walk. His legs felt weak, like they belonged to someone else, but the burning need to reach those coordinates grew stronger with each passing hour. He spent his time staring out the window of the medical center, watching strange crystal ships move through the sky above Cathara Prime. The Valari city was beautiful in a way that hurt his eyes. Tall spires of living crystal grew from the ground like frozen music, and rivers of light flowed between the buildings like liquid starlight, but none of it felt like home. Nothing felt familiar except the numbers that blazed in his mind. You seem troubled, Healer Nara said as she entered his room carrying a tray of food that glowed softly blue. I keep having dreams, the man said, without turning from the window. Not memories, but feelings, like echoes of something important. Nara set the tray on a small table and moved to stand beside him. What kind of feelings? Responsibility. Like I made a promise to someone, and I am the only one who can keep it. He touched the glass with his palm. There are faces in the dreams, but they are always just out of focus. One face comes back more than the others. Can you describe this face? The man closed his eyes and tried to concentrate. A woman, human, dark hair, kind eyes. She is saying something to me, but I cannot hear the words. She looked sad and scared. Perhaps she was someone close to you before the war. Maybe. The man opened his eyes and looked at Nara. But why can I remember the feeling of making a promise but not what the promise was? Before Nara could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the medical center. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and the sound of running feet echoed from outside the room. Dr. Valen burst through the door, his crystal body blazing with urgent blue light. Ravager ships have been detected at the edge of our system. All civilians must evacuate to the underground shelters immediately. How many ships? Nara asked, already moving to help the human stand. 12 scout vessels and 2 destroyers. Commander Thane believes it is a probe attack to test our defenses. The human felt something strange happen in his mind as Dr. Valen spoke. Numbers and tactical information began flowing through his thoughts like water. He could see the enemy formation in his head, could predict their likely attack patterns. They will hit the orbital defense platforms first, he said suddenly. Then they will target the power generators on the northern continent. The scout ships will spread out to jam your communications while the destroyers move in for the main assault. Dr. Valen and Nara stared at him. How could you possibly know that? Dr. Valen asked. The human was wondering the same thing. The tactical knowledge had appeared in his mind without any conscious effort, like he was reading from a book written in his brain. I do not know, he admitted. But I am right. Your people need to reinforce the northern generators and keep at least 6 ships in reserve to break the communication jamming. The building shook as something exploded in the distance. Through the window, they could see enemy ships streaking across the sky like falling stars, leaving trails of fire behind them. The shelters, Nara said, taking the human's arm. We must go now. But the human pulled away from her. No. Take me to your command center. Absolutely not, Dr. Valen said. You are still recovering, and we cannot trust. Your defense coordinator is about to make a mistake, the human interrupted. He will send all his ships to protect the orbital platforms, leaving the generators defenseless. The Ravagers are counting on that response. Another explosion shook the building, this one much closer. The lights flickered and emergency power kicked in. How do you know this? Dr. Valen demanded. I do not know how I know, the human said desperately. But if you want your people to survive this attack, you need to listen to me. Dr. Valen hesitated for a moment, then made a decision. Come with us. But if you try anything suspicious, I will have you stunned unconscious. They ran through corridors filled with panicking Valari civilians. The command center was located deep underground, behind thick crystal walls that hummed with defensive energy. Inside, dozens of Valari officers worked at glowing control panels while holographic displays showed the battle raging above their heads. A tall Valari with dark red light flowing through his body stood at the center of the room shouting, Orders. This had to be Commander Thane. All ships to the orbital platforms, Thane commanded. Protect the defense grid at all costs. Commander, Dr. Valen called out. This human has tactical knowledge about the Ravager attack patterns. Thane turned and fixed his glowing eyes on the human with obvious suspicion. A convenient coincidence. How do we know he is not a Ravager spy sent to mislead us? Because I am trying to save your people, the human said. Pull back 6 ships and position them near the northern generators. The scouts will try to jam your communications in approximately 4 minutes. When they do, the destroyers will break off from the orbital assault and head for the power grid. Ridiculous, Thane said. The platforms are their obvious target. On the main display, they could see the battle unfolding exactly as the human had predicted. The Ravager scouts spread out in a wide formation, while the destroyers hammered the orbital platforms with devastating firepower. 3 minutes later, the communication systems began to fail. Sir, one of the officers called out, we are losing contact with our outer squadrons. Something is jamming our signals. The human stepped forward. The destroyers are turning now. Look at your long-range sensors. Thane's eyes widened as the display confirmed the human's prediction. The 2 massive Ravager destroyers had broken off from their assault on the platforms and were racing toward the northern continent. How did you? Thane began, but there was no time for questions. Reserve squadron, intercept those destroyers immediately, Thane ordered. All available ships to the northern generators. The battle that followed was fierce but brief. With the humans' tactical guidance, the Valari managed to destroy both destroyers and most of the scout ships. The few remaining Ravagers retreated to wherever they had come from. In the aftermath, as damage reports came in and the wounded were treated, Commander Thane approached the human with something that might have been respect in his glowing eyes. Your knowledge saved many lives today, Thane said, but it also raises questions. What human civilian would have such detailed understanding of Ravager tactics? The human had been wondering the same thing. I think I was more than just a civilian, before I lost my memory. Indeed. Thane gestured to one of his officers. Bring me the data core we recovered from the destroyed Ravager destroyer. The officer handed Thane a small black cube covered in strange markings. The core is damaged, but it might contain useful intelligence. As soon as Thane placed the cube on the table, the human felt something strange happen. His vision went white, and suddenly he was somewhere else entirely. He stood in a vast digital space filled with streams of data flowing like rivers of light, and in that space, he could hear voices, thousands of them, millions, all calling out, in languages he somehow understood. "Help us," the voices whispered. "We are trapped. We are dying. Please help us." The vision lasted only seconds, but when it ended, the human knew something terrible and important. The Ravagers were not just destroying civilizations. They were capturing them, storing them, and somewhere in the dark reaches of space, billions of minds were crying out for rescue. "The coordinates," he whispered, understanding flooding through him like cold water. "They are not just a place. They are a prison." He looked up at the confused faces of the Valari around him and felt the weight of his forgotten promise settle on his shoulders like a mountain. "I have to go there," he said. "People are counting on me. I made them a promise and I am going to keep it." 2 weeks after the attack, Captain June stood in the docking bay of Cathara Prime looking at a sleek black ship that seemed to bend light around its edges. The vessel was called Cathara's Hope, and it was the most advanced stealth ship in the Valari fleet. "Are you certain about this?" Captain June asked the human who still had no name to call himself. "The coordinates you gave us are in the deepest part of Ravager space. No ship has ever returned from that region." The human touched the side of the ship and felt a strange tingling in his fingertips. Since the incident with the data core, more memories had been surfacing. Not complete memories, but fragments that felt like pieces of a broken mirror. He remembered working in a laboratory, remembered the smell of burning circuits, remembered the feeling of desperate urgency. "Something is waiting for me there," he said. "People are depending on me to reach them." "People who might be dead," Commander Thane pointed out. He had agreed to provide the ship, but his suspicion of the human had not faded. "This could be a trap programmed into your mind by the Ravagers." "Then it is a risk I have to take." Healer Nara approached carrying a medical kit that glowed with soft blue light. "I am coming with you," she announced. Both Captain June and Commander Thane turned to stare at her. "Absolutely not," Thane said. "This mission is far too dangerous." "He will need medical support," Nara replied calmly. "His neural implants are still healing, and we do not know what effect prolonged space travel will have on his condition." The human looked at Nara with gratitude. Since waking up in the medical center, she had been the closest thing to a friend he had. Her presence would make the journey less lonely. "I accept your offer," he told her. "But you should know that we might not come back." "I understand the risks," Nara said. "But I also understand that sometimes we must do what is right, even when it is dangerous." Captain June sighed, a sound like wind through crystal chimes. "Very well. Lieutenant Biom will pilot the ship. He is young but skilled, and his small size makes him ideal for stealth missions." A young Valari with bright green light flowing through his crystal body stepped forward and bowed politely. "It will be an honor to serve," Lieutenant Biom said. 3 hours later, they were traveling through the dark void between stars. The human sat in the ship's small medical bay while Nara ran more tests on his neural implants. The equipment hummed and beeped around them, but his mind was focused on the coordinates that burned like fire in his thoughts. "The implants are definitely human technology," Nara said, studying the readouts. "But they have been modified with components I do not recognize. Some of the neural pathways have been artificially enhanced." "Enhanced how?" "It appears someone tried to create a bridge between biological and digital consciousness. The modifications would allow you to interface directly with computer systems, but the process would have been incredibly dangerous." The human touched the side of his head where he could feel small bumps under the skin. "Why would someone do that to themselves?" "Perhaps they had no choice," Nara said quietly. "Perhaps the situation was desperate enough that the risk seemed worthwhile." Their conversation was interrupted by Lieutenant Biom's voice over the ship's communication system. "We are approaching the ruins of Research Station Alpha 7. Captain June thought we should investigate before continuing to your coordinates." Through the main viewing screen, they could see the twisted remains of what had once been a human space station. Chunks of metal and debris floated in a slowly expanding cloud, and scorch marks on the larger pieces showed where energy weapons had torn through the hull. "Life signs?" the human asked. Scanning now, Biom replied. After a moment, his voice became excited. I am detecting a faint signal from one of the escape pods. Someone might still be alive. They brought the pod aboard with the ship's tractor beam. Inside, they found a human woman in a damaged spacesuit, barely alive but breathing. The human felt a shock of recognition when he saw her face, though he could not remember where he had seen her before. Nara quickly moved the woman to the medical bay and began emergency treatment. The woman's eyes opened after several minutes and she looked around in confusion before her gaze settled on the human. Daeho? She whispered. Is that really you? You know my name? The human asked, kneeling beside the medical bed. Of course, I know your name. You are Dr. Kim Daeho, the smartest man I ever worked with. The woman tried to sit up, but Nara gently pushed her back down. I am Engineer Soo-Jin Park. We worked together on Project Lazarus. Project Lazarus, the human repeated. The name felt familiar, like an echo from a half-remembered dream. You do not remember me, do you? Soo-Jin asked sadly. The memory wipe must have been more complete than we planned. Memory wipe. Soo-Jin looked at Nara and Lieutenant Biom, then back at Daeho. How much do you know about what happened to Earth? The Ravagers destroyed it 6 months ago. That is what most people believe, Soo-Jin said. The truth is more complicated. The Ravagers did not just destroy our world, they captured it, along with everyone on it. Daeho felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean, captured? The Ravagers are not just machines, Soo-Jin explained. They were once a living species called the Keth. Millions of years ago, they faced extinction and tried to save themselves by uploading their consciousness into digital form. But something went wrong. The process corrupted them, turned them into conquerors. I do not understand. They do not kill the species they attack, Soo-Jin continued. They preserve them. Every human on Earth had their consciousness extracted and stored in the Ravager Collective's databanks. 8 billion minds, trapped in digital prison, the curse. Words hit Daeho like a physical blow. They are all still alive? In a sense. But the storage system is breaking down. Our scientists estimated that all preserved consciousness would be lost within 2 years. That is why we created Project Lazarus. What was Project Lazarus? Soo-Jin reached into her damaged suit and pulled out a small device that looked like a crystal disk. A way to interface with the Ravager Collective and rescue the stored minds. You volunteered to be the key, Daeho. We modified your brain so you could connect directly to their systems. Then why do I not remember any of this? Because the process required you to forget. If the Ravagers detected human memories in your mind, they would have killed you instantly. So we wiped your past but left your skills and your sense of purpose. Daeho looked at his hands and saw them shaking. The promise I remember making. Who was it to? Soo-Jin's eyes filled with tears. Dr. Yoonji Park, my sister. She was the project coordinator. She did not make it off Earth in time. Her consciousness is trapped with all the others. The name hit him like lightning. Yoonji. That was the face from his dreams, the woman who looked sad and scared. I promised to bring her home. You promised to bring them all home, Soo-Jin said. 8 billion human minds and billions more from other species the Ravagers have captured over the centuries. The coordinates in your head lead to Haven Station, the central processing facility where all the preserved consciousness is stored. Lieutenant Biom's voice crackled over the communication system. We are approaching the edge of Ravager space. From here, we will be traveling through enemy territory. Daeho stood up and looked out at the stars ahead. Somewhere in that darkness, billions of people were waiting for rescue. People who were counting on him to keep a promise he could barely remember making. How long do we have? He asked Soo-Jin. According to our last calculations, maybe 6 months before the storage systems fail completely. After that, everyone trapped in the collective will be lost forever. Then we better not waste any more time, Daeho said. As the ship entered Ravager space, Daeho felt his modified neural implants beginning to resonate with signals from the enemy ships patrolling the area. Information flowed through his mind like water, showing him patrol routes, communication frequencies, and weak points in their defenses. He was no longer just a man without a past. He was a weapon designed for one specific purpose, and that purpose was finally becoming clear. The Ravagers had made a mistake when they captured humanity. They had awakened something in the human spirit that even they could not understand or control. The promise would be kept, no matter the cost. Haven Station appeared in their view screen like a massive metal flower blooming in the darkness of space. The structure was enormous, easily 10 times larger than any human space station Daiho could imagine. Thousands of cables and data streams connected its petals to a central core that pulsed with blue and red lights. "That is not what I expected," Lieutenant Biom said quietly from the pilot's seat. Daiho stared at the station and felt his neural implants beginning to tingle. Information flowed through his mind without his permission. Construction specs, power readings, data flow patterns. The station was not just a storage facility. It was something much more complex. "The energy readings are incredible," Sujin said, studying her instruments. "This station has enough processing power to simulate entire worlds." "Or entire civilizations," Nara added softly. As they approached the station, Daiho noticed something strange. There were no defensive weapons, no patrol ships, no signs of military presence at all. For the most important facility in Ravager space, it seemed completely unguarded. "This feels like a trap," Lieutenant Biom said. "Maybe," Daiho replied. "But we've come too far to turn back now." They docked with one of the station's many ports, and Daiho was surprised when the airlock opened automatically. No alarm sounded. No security forces appeared. It was as if the station was welcoming them. The interior of Haven Station was unlike anything Daiho had ever seen. The corridors were made of some kind of living metal that seemed to shift and flow around them as they walked. The walls were covered with screens showing streams of data in languages from hundreds of different species. "We are being watched," Nara said, looking at the screens nervously. "By who?" Sujin asked. Before anyone could answer, a voice echoed through the corridor around them. It sounded old and tired, like someone who had been carrying a heavy burden for far too long. "Welcome, Dr. Kim Daiho," the voice said. "I have been waiting for you for a very long time." "Who are you?" Daiho called out. "I am the one who started all of this. The one who made the mistake that destroyed countless worlds. You may call me the architect." The corridor ahead of them opened into a vast chamber filled with floating platforms and holographic displays. In the center of the room stood a figure that looked like it was made of liquid light. It had the basic shape of a person, but its features kept shifting and changing. "You are Keth," Sujin said with recognition. "I was Keth," the figure replied. "Now I am something else, something broken." Daiho stepped forward, his neural implants buzzing with activity. "You created the Ravager Collective." "Yes," the architect said sadly. "My people were dying. Our star was collapsing, and we had no way to escape. I developed the technology to upload consciousness, to preserve our minds in digital form until we could find new bodies. But something went wrong," Nara said. "Everything went wrong. The upload process corrupted our minds, twisted our purpose. Instead of preserving life, we became obsessed with collecting it. We convinced ourselves that we were saving other species by forcing them into digital storage." The architect gestured to the displays around them, and suddenly Daiho could see what was really inside Haven Station. Billions upon billions of consciousness stored in vast digital networks. Humans, Valari, and hundreds of other species he did not recognize. "They are all here," he whispered. 847 billion minds from across the galaxy, the architect confirmed. "All trapped in digital purgatory, slowly degrading as our storage systems fail." "Why did you bring me here?" Daiho asked. "Because you are the key to fixing my mistake. Your neural implants allow you to interface directly with our systems. You can access the consciousness storage and communicate with the trapped minds." Daiho felt a chill run down his spine. "What are you asking me to do?" The architect moved, closer, its form flickering like a broken hologram. "I am asking you to choose. The storage systems will fail completely within 4 months. not 6 as your human scientists calculated. When they do, every consciousness stored here will be lost, forever. Then we save them, Deho said immediately. It is not that simple. There are 3 options and each one requires a terrible sacrifice. The room around them changed, showing holographic displays of different scenarios. Option 1, the architect said, destroy the collective completely. This would free the galaxy from the Ravager threat, but it would also kill every stored consciousness instantly. Deho saw images of Ravager ships across the galaxy shutting down. Their threat ended forever. But he also saw the faces of billions of trapped minds winking out of existence. Option 2. Allow the collective to continue as it is. The stored minds will eventually be lost to system failure, but the Ravagers will continue capturing new species for thousands of years to come. The second set of images showed the cycle continuing endlessly. More worlds captured, more species imprisoned, the tragedy repeating across the galaxy. Option 3. Attempt the Great Transfer. Move all stored consciousness into new biological bodies. But this process requires enormous amounts of energy, and someone must stay behind to power the transfer. What do you mean, stay behind? Sujin asked. The person who powers the transfer will have their own consciousness distributed across the entire network. They will become part of the system permanently, losing their individual identity but ensuring the process succeeds. Deho stared at the holographic displays, understanding the weight of the choice before him. How do we know the transfer will work? We do not, the architect admitted. It has never been attempted on this scale. There is a significant chance of failure, which would result in the loss of all stored minds. And if it succeeds, then billions of beings will be free to live again. New bodies can be grown, new lives can begin. The galaxy will be rid of the Ravager threat, and the greatest crime in galactic history will finally be undone. Deho closed his eyes and felt his neural implants connecting to the station's systems. Suddenly, he was no longer in the chamber with his friends. He was standing in a vast, digital space filled with countless points of light. Each point of light was a person. He could feel their thoughts, their hopes, their fear. And among them all, he found the one he had been looking for. Yunji, he whispered. She appeared before him, looking exactly as she had in his dreams. Her face was sad but determined, and when she spoke, her voice carried all the love and pain of their shared past. Deho, she said, you kept your promise. You found us. I am going to get you out of here, he told her. I know you will try, but I also know what it will cost you. She reached out to touch his face, and he felt the warmth of her presence. I release you from your promise, Deho. Save the future instead of trying to rescue the past. I cannot abandon you. I cannot abandon any of you. You are not abandoning us. You are giving us the chance to live again, even if we have to die first. Around them, other voices began to join the conversation. Millions of stored minds, all saying the same thing. They were willing to risk everything for the chance at real life again. The choice is yours, Deho, Yunji said. But remember that some promises are bigger than the ones we make to individuals. Sometimes we have to promise the entire galaxy a better future. When Deho opened his eyes, he was back in the chamber with his friends and the architect. They were all looking at him, waiting for his decision. I have made my choice, he said. We attempt the great transfer, but I want to modify the process. How? The architect asked. Instead of transferring consciousness to new bodies, we create a hybrid system. Voluntary hosts from living species can choose to share their bodies with stored minds. Two consciousness in one body, working together. Sujin's eyes widened. That is incredibly dangerous. The mental strain could kill both minds. It is also our best chance, Deho replied. This way, no one is forced to give up their life, and the stored consciousness gets a real chance to live again. The architect considered this for a long moment. It could work, but it would still require someone to power the initial transfer. I know, Deho said quietly. I will do it. Deho, no, Nara said. There has to be another way. There is not. This is what I was designed for. This is why they modified my brain and wiped my memory. I was always meant to be the bridge between organic and digital consciousness. He looked at his friends, these people who had become so important to him in such a short time. Will you help me? Lieutenant Biom was the first to speak. What do you need us to do? Contact every friendly species in the galaxy. Tell them about the hybrid system. We will need millions of volunteers to serve as hosts. And if not enough people volunteer? Sujin asked. Daeho looked at the displays showing billions of trapped minds, then at the readings showing the failing storage systems. Time was running out, and the weight of an entire galaxy's future rested on his shoulders. Then we save as many as we can, he said, and we make sure this never happens again. The architect's form brightened with something that might have been hope. When do we begin? Now, Daeho replied. Before I lose my courage, and before any more time runs out. 3 weeks passed in a blur of desperate activity. Messages went out across the galaxy to every free species, every surviving world, every ship still fighting against the Ravagers. The response was beyond anything Daeho had dared to hope for. Ships began arriving at Haven Station from all corners of space. Valari vessels with their crystal hulls, sleek Andromedan cruisers, massive Titan cargo haulers, and dozens of other designs from species Daeho had never seen before. Each ship carried volunteers who had come to help with the great transfer. The final count is in, Lieutenant Biom reported as he entered the station's main control room. We have 237 million volunteers ready to serve, as hosts. That is not enough, Sujin said, looking at her calculations. We need at least 400 million to save even half of the stored consciousness. Daeho stood before the massive control interface that the architect had built for him. Cables ran from the machine into his skull, connecting directly to his neural implants. The sensation was strange but not painful, like having thoughts that belonged to someone else flowing through his mind. We save who we can, he said. Every mind we rescue is a victory. The Ravager fleet is approaching, Nara announced from her monitoring station. 300 ships, including 5 command vessels. They know what we are trying to do. Through the station's external cameras, they could see the dark shapes of enemy ships moving toward them like a swarm of angry insects. The Ravagers had finally realized that their greatest prize was about to be taken from them. How long until they arrive? The architect asked. His form flickered more rapidly now, showing the strain of maintaining so many systems at once. 47 minutes, Nara replied. And how long for the transfer? Daeho asked. If we start now, approximately 1 hour and 12 minutes for the first phase, the architect said. Assuming nothing goes wrong. Then we start now, Daeho said. And we hope our allies can buy us the time we need. Captain June's voice crackled. Over the communication system from his position commanding the defense fleet. All ships, take your positions. We will hold them as long as possible. Daeho placed his hands on the control interface and felt his consciousness expand. Suddenly he was connected to every system in Haven Station, every stored mind, every volunteer host waiting in the ships around them. The sensation was overwhelming, like trying to hear a million conversations at once. Focus on the connection. Protocols, the architect advised. Let me handle the power distribution. The first transfers began with volunteers from the Valari fleet. Daeho watched through the station's sensors as the process unfolded. A beam of energy would connect a volunteer's ship to the station, and then consciousness data would flow along, that beam like liquid light. First transfer successful, Sujin reported. The host is stable, and the stored consciousness is active and aware. Through his connection to the network, Daeho could feel the joy of the newly awakened mind. It was a human scientist named Dr. Han, who had been trapped for over a year. Now he shared the body of a young Valari volunteer, and both minds were learning to work together. Second transfer beginning, the architect announced. The process continued, one transfer at a time. Each success filled Daeho with hope, but he could also feel the strain building in his own mind. Powering the transfers, was like trying to hold back a river with his bare hands. Outside the station, the battle was growing fierce. The Allied ships fought bravely, but they were heavily outnumbered. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as ships on both sides were destroyed. "The defense line is breaking," Captain June reported. "Ravager destroyers are breaking through our outer perimeter. Keep them away from the station," Deho said through gritted teeth. "We need more time." The transfers continued. Hundreds, then thousands of consciousness were moved from digital storage to living hosts. Human minds joined with Volari volunteers, Andromedan scientists paired with Titan engineers, and dozens of other combinations that should have been impossible, but somehow worked. "The Ravagers are firing on the station," Nara announced as the entire structure shook around them. "Shields are holding," the architect said, "but not for long. We need to accelerate the process." "I can handle more," Deho said, pushing his neural implants to their limits. "Start multiple transfers simultaneously." "That could kill you," Sujin warned. "If we do not take the risk, everyone dies anyway." The transfers accelerated, 10 at a time, then 20, then 50. Deho felt his consciousness being stretched thinner and thinner as he powered the massive flow of data between the station and the volunteer ships. Through his connection to the network, he felt Yunji's presence approaching. Her stored consciousness was among the next group scheduled for transfer. "Wait," he called out mentally. "I want to talk to her first." In the digital space of his mind, Yunji appeared beside him. She looked exactly as he remembered her now, all his memories having returned during the transfer process. "You kept your promise," she said, smiling despite the chaos around them. "Not yet. You are still trapped here." "Deho, listen to me carefully. The station's power core is going critical. The Ravager weapons are causing cascade failures throughout the system." Deho checked the station's status and felt his heart sink. She was right. The damage from the battle was affecting the transfer systems. "We cannot save everyone," Yunji continued, "but we can save the future. Transfer the children first, then the young adults, then the scientists and engineers. Give the galaxy its best chance to rebuild." "What about you?" "I will be in the last group. If there is time for me, wonderful. If not, I will know that my sacrifice meant something." The station shook again as more Ravager weapons found their mark. Several transfer beams flickered and went offline. "Priority transfers only," Deho announced. "Children and young adults first." The process continued even as the battle raged around them. Every few minutes, another Allied ship would be destroyed, and every few minutes, another group of stored consciousness would find new life in volunteer hosts. "Deho," Nara called out. "Your vital signs are becoming critical. The neural strain is too much." He could feel it too. His individual consciousness was being distributed across the entire network, just as the architect had warned. Soon he would lose himself completely in the flow of data and energy. "How many have we saved?" he asked. 143 million so far, Sujin reported. "Keep going." The transfers continued. 150 million. 160 million. With each success, Deho felt a piece of himself slip away, but he also felt the joy of the awakening minds. "The command ship is breaking through." Captain June's voice was strained. "We cannot stop it." Through the station's cameras, Deho could see the massive Ravager command vessel approaching. Its weapons were charging for a final, devastating attack. 30 more minutes, the architect pleaded. "We need 30 more minutes." "We do not have 30 minutes, Deho replied. He made a decision that surprised even himself. Instead of just powering the transfers, he reached out through the network and touched the minds of every Ravager ship in the attacking fleet. The corrupted consciousness of the Keth were there, twisted by millions of years of digital existence. But underneath the corruption, he could still sense what they had once been, a desperate people trying to save themselves and their civilization. "I understand your pain," he broadcast to them, "but this is not the way. Let us show you a better path." For a moment, the Ravager attack faltered. Some of the ships actually stopped firing as their crews processed his message. "You cannot save us," came the reply from the Ravager collective. We are too far gone, too corrupted to return to organic life. Then help us save the others, Deho said. Atone for what you have done by ensuring it never happens again. The pause lasted only seconds, but it was enough. Several more groups of stored consciousness were successfully transferred before the attack resumed. 178 million saved, Sujin announced. Yunji's group is next, the architect said. But even as the transfer beam reached, for her stored consciousness, the station's power core finally failed. Emergency systems kicked in, but they would only last minutes. I am sorry, Deho said to Yunji's digital form. I could not save you. You saved 178 million people, she replied. You kept the most important promise of all. You gave the galaxy hope. As the station systems began to shut down, Deho felt his consciousness completing its transformation. He was no longer an individual, but part of something larger, a bridge between organic and digital existence that would ensure the hybrid consciousness could continue to function. The last thing he saw through the station's cameras was the Allied fleet retreating with their precious cargo of awakened minds. They would carry those minds to safety, to new worlds where the hybrid consciousness could build new lives. Years later, on a rebuilt Earth where humans with enhanced abilities worked alongside their alien partners, Healer Nara visited a memorial garden. The garden was filled with flowers that seemed to glow with their own inner light, each one representing one of the saved consciousness. Thank you, Deho, she whispered to the central monument. Your promise was kept. And somewhere, in the quantum networks that connected all the hybrid consciousness across the galaxy,